The following overview of the Expert TA system was recorded on November 8, 2017 as part of a joint webinar between OpenStax and Expert TA. For more information on what you see here, please contact main@theexpertta.com.
As I was saying, my name is Jeremy Morton. I am the CEO and founder of Expert TA, and I'm going to be taking you through a brief tour of some of the features, specifically as they relate to our usage with the OpenStax book. Normally, we would spend an hour giving a tour of our site. We're certainly not going to be able to hit all of the features today, but I should be able to hit on the key points of the system that might be important to you. If you find them interesting, but you would like to learn more, please feel free to schedule a separate time with us or contact us and request more information. At this point, I'm going to log in as a demonstration instructor here and show you a few of the key areas. We are, for the online homework portion, we also have some study tools for students. When you log in as either a student or an instructor, you're going to be taken to this main class management area. You have the ability to change between classes if you have more than one section or more than one class. And in this main area here, you'll see a list of all the assignments that you've created, as well as some information about those assignments, the weight, relevant dates, if the assignment's timed, the number of minutes allowed, and then the instructor grade preference template that's associated with each assignment. This is one of the first things that you would want to do when starting with Expert TA is set up your instructor grade templates. I'm going to show you how to do that now. Under Instructor, I'll click on Grade Preferences. The first time that you visit this, you'll only have one item to the left, Instructor Default, but we give you the ability to create as many templates as you like. I've created several here, one for homework, one for a quiz, a warm-up assignment. As you click between these, the structure to the right is not going to change. It's only going to be the parameters in these fields and other specifications. You can see that there's a high level of customization that's available for instructors. You can control things like number of submission attempts and deduction values for putting in an incorrect answer. You can control whether or not students have access to hints and feedback during an assignment, and if so, what point deductions will be applied for them accessing that material. You have the ability to control whether they can see the correct answer. For example, if they've used up all of their attempts on Part A, would you like for them to be able to see what the correct answer was before they approach Parts B and C? You have the ability to specify late work if that's something that you want to offer. That could either be a flat rate, for example, half credit for the remainder of the time that it's available, or you can have that change over time, decreasing by either day or hour. We do a high level of randomization in our system. Anything that's not a constant is going to be randomized, and we're the only system on the market that's doing randomized phrases. This is a great tool to guard against over-collaboration and to guard against students looking for answers online and posting them. The best way to give an example of this would be to say two students sat down to the same question. One has the wording at the beginning that a firefighter stands on a fire escape, and the problem statement continues on. Another student sits down to an attorney stands on a balcony. The physics is the same, and the way that they would approach the problem would be the same. It's just that there's enough words and phrases that are changed such that they're not able to over-collaborate or search online for things. These are the kind of elements of the assignment that you're able to customize. Hopefully that gives you an idea that there is flexibility for an instructor. When you create your grade templates, they're going to be conveniently available anytime that you create an assignment. I would suggest that we go over and create an assignment now. I'll go back out to the main class management area. You can see that we have one quiz and we have 4 homeworks. I'm now going to create homework number 5 from the main class menu. I simply choose Create Class Assignment. And at this point, I will make this homework 5. And I'm going to suggest that we'll just add some force problems. Everything you need to configure the assignment is on one screen. You can change the weight of the assignment. As far as the grade preferences, you can choose from any of the templates via this drop-down menu. I'm going to make this a homework assignment. The start date is the day that you create it by default. The due and the end date are out a week, but you have the ability to change these using the drop-down calendar feature. Any work done between the start and the due date, they're going to earn full credit for. Any work between the due and the end date, they'll earn those late work percentages. We have this set up for the OpenStax version with college physics. We also support university physics. The chapters and sections are going to be structured exactly the same way that they are in the book. Since I'm assigning some force problems, I'm going to go into section 4.3 and show you what you're going to be seeing. At the beginning of every section, you'll see all of the problems that are in the OpenStax book at the end of chapter named exactly as they're named in the book and in the same order. As I scroll down through here, we can see that there are 14 of those problems. After the OpenStax college physics questions, you then have Expert TA's supplemental collection, which is between 1,000 and 2,000 extra questions. You can see those are ETA 431. This is our Expert TA supplemental problem 1 for this. If we scroll down a little further here, you can see in addition to the 14 from the book that we have 20 supplemental questions. At this point, when you want to add problems to an assignment, you can just click on the checkbox, decide one that you like. As you can see, this is designed to look and feel just like you've opened the book to the end of the chapter, where you can see the problem statement, the image if there is one, and the individual steps that the student would solve. I really want to show our feature of free body diagrams with the student being able to draw those in an interactive fashion. And I'm going to point that out by adding these two problems. This problem 4310 and 4310 with IFBD, which stands for interactive FBD, are identical for parts B, C, and D. Here is the way that we've always asked about free body diagrams, a multiple choice between images. And I'll be able to show you that. Here's the new interactive drawing package that we have for Part A, where students will actually draw them. At this point, you can see some other things. Difficulty levels are there. I'll add just a few extra questions to this assignment. And I'll also point out that you have access to also extra resources. Right here, I have our free body diagram collection, where we have standalone problems that only ask students to draw free body diagrams for the problem. And this is one of many resources that you would have available to be able to use along with the OpenStax book. At this point, you can see we've got 4 problems in the assignment. I can easily change the weight of those problems. I can drag and drop to change the order. And if necessary, I could delete a problem. At this point, I'll just point out that there are many other options, such as making a timed assignment if you want to have a quiz or a test. Of course, we have the ability to grant extensions if a student is sick or has other circumstances. Again, we can't cover every detail today. Hopefully, this gives you an idea about how you can create an assignment, the problems that are available for you to create. And I'm going to move on at this point. Save and exit this. We should have homework 5 in our list at this point. And I want to log out as the instructor and log back in as one of the students in that instructor's class, so you can see exactly what a student would see. At this point, the student has fewer menu items. They're not able to create assignments. They can view printable versions. They can view their numeric grades and their detailed work in grade reports. And they can also take the assignment, which is what we'll do now. The only thing different between the instructor and student interface is this extra column for the student that lets them know if they've completed an assignment, done it partially, or have no work at all. Let's go into take this assignment. To the left, you're going to see navigation that allows you to move in between problems in the assignment. On any given problem, you'll have the problem statement, the image to the right, and an interface below to complete each part of that problem. Let me see if I can scroll down to see parts B, C, and D here for the sum of the forces in the X, the Y, and then numerically solving for the acceleration. We designed our supplemental questions to reinforce the problem-solving process. We think it's important that students do homework by putting in more than just numbers. We want them to go through these exercises. This is the old version of our free body diagram, where again, it was multiple choice between images. It took quite a while to develop the interactive version and to get it right. We released it this fall, and it's been received with overwhelming positivity. I can show you what that looks like now. Here is now Part A. And you can see that there's the ability for a student to add a force to this. I can change the label on that force, and I can change the direction using drop-downs, but I can also grab this and move it around. You can see that we're snapping the force to the major axes and to 45 degrees, but if it's drawn at an arbitrary angle, we put an arc in and a symbolic label, just like a student would when drawing a free body diagram on a piece of paper. At this point, I would like to use this in order to fill in the rest of the diagram. Let's add in F sub G and put that at 270. And then we have one other force here, which is F2, acting down at an angle of theta. At this point, we have everything roughly in the right direction and labeled appropriately. Before I click submit, let's do this and put F1 in the wrong direction so that you can see an example. The fact that not only are these automatically graded, but with feedback. Here the feedback says it looks like there's at least one force that's expected in the drawing, but isn't in the right direction. Also, students like to put in extra forces at times. For example, like the acceleration. If I were to submit this, the feedback is there's no acceleration force. Acceleration doesn't belong in a free body diagram. If I remove this now, I have all the forces in their right directions, but we want to make sure that students take into account the proportionality. This is stated to be in equilibrium, and therefore the sum of the forces in the x and the y should roughly equal 0, and the diagram should communicate that. Rather than dealing with tolerances, which can get really tricky and be picky, we display to the student if the diagram is roughly balanced. And as you can see here, it's not. It's got a negative downward bias. I could take this and move it up a little bit. You can see that now says it's roughly 0 in the y direction. Before I fix this, let's make a submission. And you can see that the feedback for this is going to say, your drawing isn't proportionally correct. All forces should roughly add to 0 in the x direction. At this point, if I just extend F1 to the left, and both of these are 0, now it's going to count this as correct. And you can see that even though the lengths of the forces for the student is very different than the answer we have on record, it's still accepted as correct because conceptually it is correct. It just matters that these are balanced within the student's drawing, just as you would expect if they were drawing it on paper. We're very pleased with this new feature, and we feel like students solving problems in an engaged way like this is helpful for them. There's one other feature that we want to show you, the question type of expressions. Here you can see that we have a palette. There are no drill down options. Everything that the student needs is on the screen. To the right, you're going to see numbers, operators, and some navigation. This is going to be the same pretty much from one problem to the next in the system. To the left here, though, is a prescribed nomenclature that has all the variables that the student needs, plus some distractor variables they have to look past. This is certainly going to change from one problem to the next. The student can either click the buttons here, or they can type using the keyboard and are still restricted to that nomenclature. If they try to enter in something like F7, you can see that it says that's not a valid variable. So either clicking or typing, students can use this to get their expressions in. I want to put in a couple of examples here. The correct answer looks like it's F2 cosine theta minus F1, given this coordinate system. Let's put in F2, a few extra parentheses. Instead of cosine, let's put sine theta. And instead of minus 1, let's make it be a plus 1 by multiplying by negative 1 here. We're not suggesting that students should put in answers like this. This is only to demonstrate that your system needs to be able to robustly handle equations that are typed in different forms and essentially know what a student means. When I click submit, it says that specific feedback is available. When I access that, it says, please look at the angles specified and think about how that affects the trig factors associated with each term. That would be the F2 sine theta versus cosine, but note that it doesn't say which term has the trig error. Please look at the specified coordinate system. Think about that, how that affects the sign of each term. Again, it doesn't say where the sign error is, but it also says that it looks like there's some extra terms that aren't necessary. This is very targeted feedback and specific to this mistake. If a different student put in a different wrong answer, or if this student did on a different submission where they simply neglect to include trig, we can see that the feedback is very different. you're being asked specifically about what's happening in the X direction, you need to break down your force into its X and Y components, and here you're really more concerned with the X. You can see that, again, the feedback is targeted. One more example here before we move on. F1 cosine theta minus F2, where we've just switched two variables. When I click submit here, the feedback is, it looks like you've confused two of the key variables in this relationship, something that students quite commonly do. I'll demonstrate what happens if a student puts in something that's way off base. Here, there should be no feedback. I'm not sure what you would say about that. We make sure we don't steal points from the students, so we disable the feedback button. We suggest that they probably should access the hints or get help from some other resource. At this point, I'd like to put in the correct answer here. Again, maybe where there's a little bit of simplification by our math engine that would be required. I'll put in the F2 cosine theta with extra parens. It should be minus F1, and I'm going to make it as plus F1 times negative 1. At this point, you can see it accepts that as the correct answer. The student gets their grade, and we have the history of this work that's presented here. This is compiled into a grade report that both the student and the instructor for this student are able to access in the future at any time in order to study. Now, I want to talk about this feedback and where it comes from and how broad it is across our system, because it's very important. This is something we do for our own questions and something that we also have done for all the OpenStax questions as well. If I come in here, I'm logged in as myself, an administrator, and I'm viewing the problem definition for one of the problems in Expert TA. It looks like there's a basketball player shooting free throws. Here's an example of randomized words. Here's an example of a randomized variable. If I move over to part A, you can see that there's the part statement asking for the initial velocity vector. There are a number of hints that are available for the student. There's a correct answer that's defined right here, but down below, there are also a number of anticipated mistakes. These are not our authors guessing what a student might do wrong. We started a massive data mining initiative about 5 years ago where we realized that a lot of students are putting in wrong answers. Why not extract every wrong answer that's ever been submitted, run it through a process, get all the mathematically equivalent ones grouped, and then sort it to show the number one most common wrong answer, the second, the third. And then we have college-level physics instructors write feedback that would be provided to the student for that mistake. And you can see here that this isn't just a math engine detecting things. It is the data mining, and these are clearly written by a person. Your answers suggest the components are larger than the magnitude of the vector. This is non-physical. In the future, when a student takes this and they put in an answer, we check to see if it's this right answer. If it's not, we start looking through this list of anticipated mistakes. If we find that it matches there, we give them the feedback that was written by a person. And that's not where we stop with feedback. If it makes it through this list and it doesn't find a match, we still have our actual math engine that can detect things being off by a factor of 2 or a factor of 10. And so this should give you an idea of the amount of feedback that's available to students as they're working these problems. At this point, what I would like to do is go back into the system here. Hopefully this gives you an idea of how students will be solving problems. I want to log out. I want to log back in as the instructor. I want to share one final closing thought, and that is the fact that when you go to access your grades, you're going to find them in the standard Excel format, kind of spreadsheet form. You can extract this in a number of forms, and that's very helpful. You can upload these or do calculations. But in your grade sheet, here for homework 6, I only see one number for that student we were just doing the work for. If you ever want to see the detailed work for a student, you can click on this numeric value, and as the instructor, you can see that student's work, and you can see all of the submissions. This is what we would have just entered together. If you ever get an email from a student or a student comes into office hours and says they're having trouble, being able to see their detailed work is incredibly helpful for an instructor. There are, again, a number of other features, if you think this is compelling, that we would be happy to show you later, but we can close this up and go into the question and answer session. The one final comment that I would make is a frequently asked question that I know will probably be coming. It's about cost. The cost for Expert TA on a college level is $32.50 for a semester, and then we're committed to getting students through the introductory sequence for $65, even if they have to retake Physics 1, Physics 2, or both. And if you're on a trimester, the price per quarter is $65 divided by 3, which is $21.66. Hopefully that is helpful. Obviously, we have time for question and answer. Please let us know, and unless there's any specific questions here, we can talk with Dr. Blatchley about his specific use of Expert TA in his class at this point.